Okay, good morning. We are resuming the Board of Elections meeting that we recessed on Tuesday. We were looking at provisional ballots. Our staff has been had a chance to look through about half of the provisional ballots on by Tuesday. They needed some more time to go through what essentially was the other half, so we're going to continue looking at those provisional ballots today. I'll turn to Mr. Freitag or Mr. Greaser, or Mr. Freitag, right? Or to start talking a little bit about the categories that we have here for these provisionals.
Good morning, Commissioners. We've finished going through all of the remaining provisionals. All of the categories are the same except for one. Dan, did you want to?
Yeah, if it may please the Commissioners, I would suggest that since, with the exception of the one ballot, since all of the provisional ballots fall into the same categories, that after the Board of Elections Director here reads each of the categories and the number of ballots in each category, that you would consider a motion to adjudicate all of the categories just named by the BOE Director in the same fashion that you did on Tuesday. Might speed things along here this morning.
Any objections to that?
No.
Okay, all right. Got Mr. Freitag.
Okay, the first category of 48 ballots were absentee ballots were issued, but we did not receive the ballot back from the voter. We make the recommendation those votes be counted.
Okay.
The second group is similar. Mail-in ballots were issued to the voters, but we did not receive them back. This is 611. We would recommend these ballots be counted.
Okay.
The next category is voters' name not on list. This accounts for 653. We would make a suggestion those be counted. These were registered voters that just names were not in the poll book again due to the issue with the state's export.
Tom, and again, is this the case where the Department of State
Yes.
did not have them for some reason? Because
Yes, so the Department of State, when we sent them the updated file, did not give that on our poll pads. So these people were registered, they were registered in time, just unfortunately they didn't make it.
These would mostly be new voters, right?
Correct, new voters or voters that may be moved throughout the county.
Okay.
The next order would be for partially counted. We would have 56 voters who went to the wrong precinct, and they were either in the wrong senatorial or legislative districts, so we would recommend that their votes be partially counted for the offices they're eligible for.
Okay.
We have one voter who applied for an absentee ballot, and we did receive it back. They also went to the polls to vote provisionally. We would recommend that not be counted because we've already counted their absentee ballot.
Okay.
There's one voter who is canceled in Bucks County. We would recommend that their vote not be counted for that reason. There are 22 voters who were required to show ID. First-time voters, either first-time voting or first-time in a new precinct, are required to show ID. They did not and had until 6 days following the election to produce ID. They did not, so we would recommend they be rejected. 3 with incomplete affidavits. We would recommend that they be rejected. So they, 2 of them didn't fill out anything at all in the upper section where they need to put their name and address, and so we have no way of identifying them. The third one had partially filled out. There was no address written with it, so we would recommend that it not be counted. The next category is mail-in ballots that were received. So these voters applied for a mail-in ballot. We did receive it back from them. It had already been counted. They went to the polls and did a provisional ballot. We would recommend they not be counted. There were 12 of those, I'm sorry. Naked ballots, There are 55 that did not have a secrecy envelope. We would recommend that those be rejected. The next category is 29, where the judge of elections did not sign the provisional ballot envelope. Our recommendation would be to reject. However, in the last meeting, you did vote to count those. So if you want to stay with the same status as the last meeting, your vote was to count.
What was the vote on that category?
You, as the board, voted to count those.
Okay.
If we're going consistent with what the Tuesday's vote was, that would be
It
the
was 3-0?
Was it
do you
2 to
remember
1?
what the vote on that?
I think it was 3-0. I don't recall for certain. I think all three you voted for.
That was the issue where the judge did not sign it. The voter filled it out correctly, but the judge of elections is supposed to sign the bottom of the.
We decided or determined amongst ourselves that it was the judge of election who actually made the mistake, right? So
Yes.
Correct, yes. The next category are voters who are not registered. There are 62 that we would recommend there not be counted. The next category is voters registered outside of Bucks County. There are 69 we would recommend not be counted. This category is a secrecy envelope, was not put within the declaration envelope, so there's no way to determine whose vote is whose. So we would recommend they not be counted. 25 of those.
It looks like the overwhelming majority of those is from, I didn't bring my glasses, these numbers are small. So is this, I see Sellersville, is it all the same precinct in Sellersville?
Yes, it was all the same precinct. It was West Rock Hill, where they filled out the declaration envelopes.
Right.
They also had voters put their ballot within a secrecy envelope, but none of those secrecy envelopes were put within the declaration envelope. So we have no way of knowing whose ballot's whose, and not all of them, based on the declaration envelopes, could be counted. So there's no.
Just tell me what the ballot is, the ballot, they put in the secrecy envelope.
But the secrecy envelope was never put into the declaration envelope.
So where's the declaration?
We have the declaration envelope, but we don't have no way of tying which of those secrecy
them
envelopes goes to the declaration envelope. And since not all of them could be counted because some people were not registered, or so we don't know which one is which, so there's no way for us to.
Yes, that's, I mean, and this is,
There's no way to give credit to the voter.
yeah, I mean, it's certain, I mean, there's no, we don't have a choice. It's just, that's an example. And I know, it's certainly no fault of yours. I know the work you put into training the staff and putting the materials together. We got compliments on the new manuals that went out to judges of election, but this is clearly a judge of election who just who did something very, very wrong and cost, dozens and dozens of people their right to vote. I don't know, and, we don't have to decide right now, but I don't know if this is an elected judge of elections or appointed, but that's something we have to do some outreach to that particular judge.
This is 25, okay, so we know who they are.
But we don't know which of their votes, and some of them don't, some of them didn't, some of them aren't registered, and so how do we know which vote is the person who's not registered versus the person who is registered?
you wouldn't be able to match them up.
Yeah.
I know, but I know you're gonna have them come in and re-vote. I don't think I can't think of any race up there that is down or up by 25.
No, it's not.
But if it was, I mean, how would we not?
Yeah.
Commissioner, I would think there would be some litigation on this one if it was a close race. And they might say, if there was 3 not registered, we'll count all but 3. I don't know how they would do it, but I would imagine there'd be litigation.
All right, I'll relax that there'd be litigation.
Yeah.
So,
Next category, there were 5 voters who filled out the provisional ballots. However, it looks as though they did not put the provisional into the secrecy envelope. They actually cast it on the machine. So they've, in fact, already voted. So we would recommend, there's nothing we can do at this point, but reject the envelopes.
Okay.
Give no count. We have 2 where the voter did not sign the declaration envelope, so we would recommend they not count. We have 1 where a power of attorney attempted to vote for a voter. We would recommend this not count because power of attorney does not affect voting. And then there are 7 we would recommend to count. These are voters who had some form of a mail-in deficiency, either envelope not signed, envelope not dated, where the mail-in was rejected. They then went to the polls to vote in person and voted by provisional. So we would recommend they be counted.
Okay. Okay. All right, comments or questions regarding any of the categories? I think the 1 vote, the power of attorney, is obviously a different, something we did not deal with on Tuesday, so maybe we'll do that first. Is there a motion to reject the 1 vote where a power of attorney individual came in and voted for someone else?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so following the advice of our solicitor, is there a motion to adjudicate these remaining categories in the same fashion in which we dealt with them on Tuesday?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. And just, obviously, 1 very, very close race in Bucks County, which is having some statewide attention. The votes that none of the provisionals we dealt with today are involved in that race. That race was prioritized. And so those votes, aside from some which the parties are challenging, which this board will hear those challenges on Tuesday, those votes should already be cast and canvassed and uploaded, processed, and everything else.
Yes, so aside from the challenge ballots and the 142, everything should be already canvassed.
All right.
Do you know how many total ballots are involved in the challenge?
There's 47, Commissioner, and there are 4 that we're still doing some research on, so that would be the max would be 51.
Thank you.
And we're going to do that on Tuesday?
Yes, we advertised the meeting for Tuesday at 10
Okay.
o'clock,
Do we know a time yet?
10 a.m.
10 o'clock on Tuesday?
Okay. So obviously, the remaining provisionals and other ballots that were being canvassed Tuesday afternoon and yesterday, and on, take these back to the office and they'll be canvassed and processed. The election will be substantially complete, except for the hearing on Tuesday.
That's correct.
Are there any court challenges in the 142nd that you know of?
Nothing as of right now.
No?
Nothing currently, no.
Okay. All right. So so we're recessed. We had some public comment on Tuesday. Mr. Vogan, sure, want to make some public comment? Sure. Don't miss an opportunity. Go ahead.
I do have a question. I understand as judge of elections, being a judge of elections, sometimes I'm pulled in 8 directions at once.
Sure.
And I'm not accusing a judge of elections of doing anything wrong or saying I'm going to sign improperly, not sign, because if they're going to not sign, they better have one very strong reason to justify it. But is there a way, if we make that honest mistake, that we could be contacted and that the judges of elections say, oh yeah, I made that mistake, so we don't go through this? And a lot of my suggestions I give to this board have implications countywide. So to say I should only worry about my ward, I think is ludicrous, because I'm coming up with questions and ideas that can prevent problems all throughout the counties, and I think that's what we need to hear. Preventive electioneering, I hate to use electioneering, preventive election management, we'll call it, because as my sports official, we use that. So that's some of my questions I have. Is there any procedure to contact the judge of elections, say, did you make this mistake? An email could be sent, so it could make things a lot easier for the Board of Elections.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we do appreciate your comments, and you always do bring some valid concerns up. I think for the most part, as you heard this board, we did have situations where a judge of elections didn't sign something, but we decided to count the votes anyway because that's the judge's fault, and certainly understand how hectic it can be. But occasionally there are fatal flaws, like what we just, the one situation in Sellersville where, if they're separating the secrecy envelopes with the ballots in them from the declaration envelopes, and we have no way of matching, and then some of the votes we can't count for a variety of reasons. Well, which ones do we choose not to count? And particularly because it happened with about 20 ballots. It wasn't one. So it's clearly in that case, and there's been others, that's an issue of the judge of elections making the same mistake over and over again, because they either missed the training or didn't pick up on the training. We're not going to do back and forth. I'm just saying. So we do our best, I think, the staff and the board, to think about those kinds of situations and not punish the voter because one or two errors. But yeah, so.
Go.
You right? Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead, Gene. Go ahead. Go ahead, Gene.
Me?
If you want to speak.
Yeah, and we talk about, you hear a lot about every vote should count, and the importance of people coming out and voting. And no more is that reflected in what's going on right now. You have two House races that are going to decide the majority in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. One of them's right here in Bucks County, the 142nd, and the other one's in Montgomery County. I think that's 151st district. It's Todd Stevens is the Republican, the incumbent Republican. And right now, if the Democrats won either one of those two, they would be technically at 102 to 101 and in the majority. And there's a lot of things to work out there because the Democrats have 3 seats. One of them, a state rep, unfortunately, a good friend of mine, Tony DeLuca, just passed away right before the election. So that's an open seat. They also have the gentleman who ran for lieutenant governor with Attorney General Shapiro, Austin Davis. So he's going to be taking up a new office, and also a state rep in the western part of the state, Summer Lee, who ran for Congress and won. So they have 3 seats that are going to be open, and we're going to have a special election. But look at this. I mean, that race in Montgomery County, the Democrat is ahead by 37 votes. 37, and I think they've supposedly done counting. The race here in Bucks County was 54 votes. And I realize, and I think most people do, how important it is to be in the majority, because you get to name all the committee chairmen, the committees all have more members of that party who's ever in the majority. The party who's got the majority elects the Speaker of the House, and you have a majority leader who controls the legislative agenda. I mean, it's really, really important. And we're still, all the counties are still struggling with what votes we're going to count or what votes we're not going to count. And the 3 of us have talked about this for the last 3 years, that we need the legislature, working with the governor, the new governor, to come up with a piece of legislation to address all these problems and the naked ballots, no signature, all these problems that we have trying to decide whether they should be counted or not, and put it in statute. So very respectfully, again, for the 100th time, asking the legislature and the new governor to get together, come up with a compromise bill that will address some of these problems, put it in statute and pass it. So it's going to make our job here at the county level and the Board of Elections job a whole lot easier, and it's going to make it's going to be terrific for the people who want to come out and vote and make sure their vote counts. So we need that done, hopefully before the primary next year. It would be great. But just again, just very respectfully asking the legislature to work on this. No matter who's ever in the majority or how it works out, I mean, got to get this done for the sake of the voters of PA and for the sake of the people that are working in our Board of Elections. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I want to take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.